Guys, welcome into another great episode of the Off the Reins podcast. My name is Ryan Messer, and we've got a lot to get into. But before we do, make sure you guys are following us on all of our social handles between the X account for Stay in Stampede, Facebook, and then the Shotgun Sports Network YouTube page. Also, if you guys haven't noticed, we also have the Shotgun Sports Alabama, X, and Facebook. So make sure you guys are following us there as well. Um, we're gonna take a couple weeks hiatus after next week's episode, after we break down the championship game in St. Louis, and then we will be taking a couple weeks just to get ready for the Forge podcast, and then this podcast, the Off the Reins podcast, will resume every other week up until probably training camp or somewhere right around there. But we will have everything covered also in the Forge podcast as well. So, which will be every week. We got a lot to get into today between stuff leading up to the the conference championship games this past weekend, breaking down the conference championship games from the past weekend, as well as getting you prepared for the big game in St. Louis, which we will be at. We will have you covered from everything there in the Gateway City. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right on into it with the Birmingham Sports Brief, brought to us this week, as always, by Blue Spring Living Water. We're going to jump right on into it with the Birmingham Barons of the Southern League of Minor League Baseball, where the Barons took on the Tennessee Smokies up in Rocky Top this past week, who were second place in the Southern League North. The Barons wound up winning the series 3-2 and are still on top. This was a very important series for the Barons, because again, they are only a couple games ahead of the Tennessee Smokies. So we've got to maintain that first place status for as long as we can to get ready for the playoffs, the Southern League playoffs. Also, they are getting ready for a homestand with the Blue Wahoos of Pensacola coming up this week, where they are going to be doing a homage to the Birmingham Black Barons of the Negro Leagues. In this entire week, they are going to be doing a salute to the Negro Leagues as they get ready for the Rickwood Classic and the big MLB game that will be taking place at Rickwood in a couple weeks, where they are going to do the salute to the Negro Leagues as well, where the San Francisco Giants are going to be taking on the St. Louis Cardinals at Rickwood. So, they're also on Juneteenth. They're also going to have a celebrity softball tournament. It's going to be pretty cool. So got a lot of stuff going on to get ready for this, and really just trying to, pay homage to the Negro Leagues, which was back when baseball was separated, unfortunately. And I love how the MLB wound up taking the stats from the league and actually using those for the MLB stats and the records and all of that. So that's a great progressive move for the MLB. I think that's a good step forward into trying to make things to where where they should have been in the first place. But with this, they are gonna be wearing the Birmingham Black Barons jerseys as well, um, trying to prepare for the big Rickwood game where they're gonna take on the Montgomery Biscuits. So it's gonna be a great thing. If you guys haven't gotten your tickets, make sure you go and get your tickets. The MLB invested a lot of money in some restructuring and some renovations to Rickwood. So it's going to be exciting to see what all got done and what was able to be done. I know they added some seats, they changed out the dirt and stuff like that, and made a few things, getting it ready for the MLB game. So it's great to see that. But it's going to be I know that's going to be a big impact for the city. Hopefully it's not just going to be a one-time thing with the MLB. Hopefully they'll come back, but we'll have to see later on down a couple years out. So, switching over to the Birmingham Legion FC, where they took on the third place in the Eastern Conference, the Indy 11. We were at that game, and it was a pretty back and forth, up and down the field kind of game until for a majority of the first half, until there was a controversial penalty kick where for Indy, and they wound up getting a goal on that penalty kick, and the rest of the game, the rest of that half, and then into that half was just a big defensive matchup back and forth, and we weren't able to overcome that one goal. So they wound up losing that game 1-0. And then they're going to be back at Protective Stadium on the 19th to take on San Antonio FC for the Juneteenth game. So it's going to be exciting to see what they have in store for that as well. So they actually also, you can see here, they had a clinic before the game on this past Sunday, and they were able to host kids to teach them some skills and stuff like that. We posted that on the Shotgun Sports Alabama page, and it's really cool to see how the athletes are getting the community, the kids in the community, get them developed for the next level. Switching over to the G League. I know we've got a long time before the G League is getting started. However, the Birmingham Squadron had took a trip over to the Community Food Bank of Central Alabama over in Homewood this past week. It was on Friday, where members of the Birmingham Squadron, including Commander and members of Morris Bart law firm, were there to provide a $8,500 check to the food bank, which was donated by Morris Bart through donations that came from the missed free throw promotion, where the opposing team, if they miss a free throw, Morris Bart will donate $500 to the Community Food Bank of Central Alabama. After the presentation of the check, the team also wound up packing 240 boxes, which is about 10,500 pounds of food, and each box will feed a family for a week. So that was some great things that team is doing there, and it's great to see the teams giving back to the community there. Also with the Birmingham Squadron, coming up on June 26th, they are going to be hosting the SummerSlam event at Avondale Brewing Company at 7 p.m., where they're going to be, it's more kind of a viewing party for the NBA draft, where the New Orleans Pelicans have the 21st pick overall. And 8 of the last 10 picks, I apologize, have played in the NBA G League. So it's going to be a great event. Make sure you get out there. They're going to have tons of activities for kids and the entire family. So make sure you get out there and do that. Another thing you need to make sure you do is get that order in for Blue Spring Living Water. I'm getting tired of telling you guys. Nah, I'm not getting tired of it. Blue Spring, you don't have to worry about where it comes from, where it's sourced from. It's sourced from right up the street, up there in Blount County, Alabama, and it's naturally sourced, naturally minerally enriched, and they deliver it right to your door. You can't beat it. So make sure you take a step toward a healthier life with Blue Spring Living Water. Switching back over to the Birmingham Stallions, where we wound up seeing the USFL Conference Championship game. Prior to the game, we found out that Ricky Person, JoJo Tillery, and DeMarcus Gates were coming back, and it's great. It was great to have those guys back on with the team, especially JoJo Tillery. He's been out for so long, but he is such a leader on this defense, so it was great to see him back. He's one, if you've been to a game, you've seen him, how vocal he can be, and Coach was talking in a press conference today about how vocal he is, not only in the game, but in practice. If somebody's messing up, he'll call him out on it. He's very vocal about what needs to be done. He even called him used the C word, coach. So it's great to see how great to have him back with the team, and having him back. I think that's kind of a morale booster there as well with this team. But in the game itself, it was started out to a slow start for Birmingham, where it's been kind of slow start for the past few weeks, guys. It's between Jace Sternberger even mentioned last week during the win last week that there was something mentally that was going on with this team and this offense, and we're beginning to wonder if they were beginning to get complacent because they were winning so much, and then they went into Arlington or to San Antonio and then wound up losing that game, and then they came back and it pretty much like lost their identity, more or less. But we kept shooting ourselves in the foot with these penalties. Had a personal foul for unsportsmanlike. Had a couple unnecessary roughness penalties, but not as many as we have been having. It was a lot of false starts, stuff like that. It was a bunch of communication issues, it seemed like. And Coach Holtz was even getting on to Adrian at first because he was saying that it wasn't the right call or whatever. But, I mean, we really don't know what everything that goes on between those two, because it doesn't show everything when you do the replays of the back and forth with the coach and the quarterback. But it's really was scary there in that first half. And then they looked like we had a little small spark going into halftime with the touchdown right before halftime. But other than that, that first half was miserable. then in the second half, it looked like it was a completely different team when they came out of that tunnel. Um, but it was an insane third quarter. For eight total turnovers in a quarter, that's the most turnovers than any other game in the this season, and it's tied for most for the legacy USFL and XFL. So, and six of those came out of the third quarter. So it's insane how all those turnovers really affected the game. But when they wound up putting Matt Corral in, he did have one of those turnovers. That was not his fault. The receiver wound up hitting the ball up, trying to catch it, but and the defender wound up, intercepting it. But we can't really put that on Matt Corral. That the receiver should have reeled that in or knocked it down if he couldn't have handled that one. But he didn't let that get to him. He's been, I've seen him throughout the entire season. When they'd come over, it'd be, you'd see Matt and Adrian going over what plays to run with Coach Holtz, and occasionally Jamar going over what needed to be done. But it's really cool to see this quarterback room as gelled as they are, because it's that really, him going in there and just being able to put new life, new energy into this team is what it seemed like. And he took what the defense gave him. They didn't give much, but when they did, it was a really good turning point in the game. Another big point was CJ Marable was a beast in this game. I can't help but say, because he wound up with 77 yards, and Michigan had 90 yards rushing combined in the entire game. So only 13 more yards than what CJ Marable had the entire game. And Ricky Person was back in this game, guys. So it was great to see how CJ had a really good game. Everybody kept saying, "Oh, Ricky's the better, back," and all this, that, and the other. But it just depends on what scheme they're trying to play. And in this game, it was better to have, CJ had the better game. So overall, another big point with this for how we won is our capitalization of the turnovers. Of course, we know with this pick right here from Daniel Isom here, and he wound up running it back for a pick six. So not only that, Ike Brown had two other interceptions and wound up getting 10 yards off of one and then 24 yards off the other, while Michigan on their two picks wound up only getting netting a total of 8 yards off of both of those picks. So that was a big capitalization for the Stallions in this game, was capitalizing on what the defense or what the offense gave them, and capitalizing on these turnovers there. Another thing that was another big issue in this game was the emotions. There were a lot of fireworks going back and forth between these two teams, because some of these guys actually live together. A bunch of them live in the same location. They practice together and all this, that, and the other, but it was a very emotional game, and on both sides, and they had a lot to play for. Also, there was a lot of shoving back and forth, a lot of hard hits. There was only one unsportsmanlike that I know of, and only a few unnecessary roughness calls, but overall, refs wound up de-escalating it for the most part for majority of the game. But then when it came after the game, there were a few people, jawing back and forth, and a few Michigan players wound up making their way to the Stallions bench, where they actually had to be separated. There was a big crowd that wound up gathering around the Stallions bench, where people were shoving back and forth, uh, talking smack, all this. And it was a bit gaudy. I mean, it was the game was over. Just let bygones be bygones. I know most of the players were, hey, congratulating the Stallions, and then the Stallions telling the Panthers players. But of course, you've always got a few that are going to take it a little too far, and I think that's what happened over there on the bench. But um, they wound up getting the guys separated that were getting into it. So overall, it was a really good game overall. So then we had the XFL conference championship on Sunday, which was let's just say that San Antonio dominated majority of the game. They came out swinging, and even though they wound up getting only they wound up St. Louis wound up taking the first possession, which I've never understood. I've always loved if I've always loved it when the team would. I thought it was always the best strategy to take the second half reception, but just to get a feel of the team coming in, and then make your adjustments, and then come out of halftime swinging. Uh, but St. Louis wound up taking the first half reception, and they weren't able to capitalize on it. And then uh, San Antonio just came, like I said, came out swinging, and the turnovers were where St. Louis, could stayed in the game a little bit, but um, it it wasn't enough. And then on top of that, the AJ injury just didn't help them at all. And then after the half, when AJ came back in the game, it just seemed like that wasn't the best play calling for considering he was injured and all that. The trick play where they were trying to do the double pass and all of that on when AJ is hurt, and you're really going to try to sacrifice your quarterback when you're trying to get to the championship game. And it was just some questionable play calling on St. Louis's part. And then Wade Phillips, as always, just kept his head in the game and maintained his composure the entire game. And then actually yesterday, we found out that our uh, quarterback that started last game or this past weekend, Adrian Martinez, is the league MVP for the 2024 season, the inaugural season. Of course, everybody assumed that. Everybody assumes that it was um, more or less a unanimous decision, because he was the league's leading rusher. Uh, he was up there in the passing yards. He was up there in uh, total yards, and uh, overall, he dominated a bunch of the categories, and just checking them off one by one. But um, I kind of think, I don't know if it was a mentality thing for him that he had to be benched this past week, but he did deserve the. A bunch of people are kind of saying, "Oh, he shouldn't have gotten it because he was benched in the conference championship." I don't think so because I've always viewed an MVP award, a league the MVP award, as a regular season award, and he was dominant this entire season. He won the starting job in the week, I think 3 or 4, and he earned it. Overall, I mean, I'm not trying to be a homer here and say that you know he should have won it because he's wearing a Stallions uniform, but he was the most dominant player in the league, I believe, um, through the entire regular season. Yes, he had a few issues here and there, but I still say he dominated through the entire season. Um, Overall, though, getting ready for this week, it guys, the inaugural season of the United Football League ends on Sunday, where the Birmingham Stallions are going to take on the San Antonio Brahmas, and it's going to be a neutral site now that the St. Louis Battlehawks are no longer going to be in contention. So I think that's going to be really cool to see and have a neutral field, just like the we had in Canton for the USFL. But for the Stallions fans, it's going to be, and the Stallions team in general, it's going to be really good because this is going to be a way that they can rectify the only blemish they had on this season. Because if they can win this game and win the three-peat, and then at that beating the only team that beat them this year, that's just going to be a perfect ending for a perfect story. I'm not one that believes that games are fixed or that anything's rigged, but if it was, this would be a perfect story for someone to write into the script because this is for them to win this game, overcome all the injuries they have, and then come in and beat the only team that beat them in the championship. It's beautiful. Um, just a perfect storybook ending for this team in this league this season. So, like I said, we are going to be there. We're going to have everything from Saturday all the way to Sunday. So, stay tuned. We're going to have more on the page. Make sure you're following us. And we'll see you out there in St. Louis. Giddy up.